what people are really, their diet is seeking is fiber. Fiber makes you supple, makes your bowels supple, makes your vessels more supple, and thus your mind and your skin more supple.
Welcome to the podcast for Healing Neurology, where we talk about everything that can help heal your neurology, which is really everything: food, lifestyle, thinking and feeling patterns, environment in which you live and work, medical treatments, pharmaceuticals, nature, culture, and politics. There is no topic too big or too small. I'm Jillian Ehrlich, family nurse practitioner, certified in Ayurveda and functional medicine, here with the amazing Jane Esselstyn, who is a nurse, researcher, mother, and teacher, who's at the forefront of the plant-based movement. She presents her work, research, and high-energy demos around the world and on her new YouTube channel with her firecracker mom, Jane Esselstyn. Women, families, and community drive Jane's work. She's the host of the annual conference, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease for Women, which is in Cleveland, right?
Yes.
Place of both of our births, which is focused on the power of plants. Jane claims, quote, "Prevention is the new cure and the most powerful, relevant, and protective medicine available." Unquote. With full enthusiasm, Jane co-founded Well Now Camp. I know, so fun, so fun. An activity-filled creative escape for plant-based women warriors. Jane is an avid and inventive designer of plant-strong recipes and the co-author of the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook. She created the recipe sections of the #1 New York Times bestseller Plant Strong and the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue by Rip Esselstyn, her brother. And she is co-author of the Engine 2 Cookbook. And we have known each other a long time. You were my high school health teacher, and I have obviously never forgotten about you. So welcome, Jane.
It's so great to be here with you. And I want to say, I met you in Cleveland. Were you born in Cleveland?
Yeah. Were you not born in Cleveland?
I was actually born in London, love.
You were? I did not know that.
My dad was finishing up his fellowship in London, and I was born September 16th, and then I think we flew home on the 17th.
Oh my goodness.
Because my mom had two little boys, like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and a newborn, and they were like packed up, ready to go. And like, oh, she came out. So they had to fly home with me.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
That is fabulous. So do you get dual citizenship?
No. As a kid, I always wanted to do both, but somehow the U.S. didn't want you to, something made me not do that.
Okay.
And as a swimmer, I was a big swimmer, and I was like, I could swim for England and maybe make the Olympics, but I can't do it in the States.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of looked into it, but I didn't.
Yeah. But you still live in Cleveland now.
We are in Cleveland. I live next door to my parents, so I'm just literally not across the street, next door to where I grew up.
That's so great. Well, it's good to have you here today, and we are very excited to talk about plant-based diets.
Well, thank you. It's exciting to be here talking with you. It's so funny to hear you are my student suddenly.
I know.
I'm learning so much from you.
Oh, not 17 anymore. Just in my mind. So what is a plant-based diet? What does that mean?
Well, a whole food plant-based diet is what we really are proponents of and what we really prefer to talk about, because a whole food plant-based diet is defined by food in its as close as possible to its natural form, like an apple, not apple juice, all the time, or corn, not corn syrup, or eating olives, not just a bunch of olive oil. I mean, there are some foods, obviously, that are not in this whole food. I mean, we take rice and we cook it or whatever. But the reason I'm saying all that about being a whole food plant-based diet, because we eat, obviously, grains, greens, beans, berries, fruits, vegetables, all this stuff. And we eat pizza, we eat with no cheese and stuff like that. But and the difference between a whole food plant-based diet and like a vegan diet is that vegan sometimes it's a philosophy. It's a whole way of thinking. It's a whole way of living that includes like not having leather, on your clothing or, around your home where you might use leather. It's very animal rights based, which I'm pro, but I would not say that that's not my banner. Also, vegan and even plant-based these days is kind of being hijacked by, if you will, junk food vegan or junk food plant-based. And that's just like intense coconut oil filled or palm oil filled, like fake meats and burgers. Like there's this whole plant-based burger out these days that there's no plants in it. It just isolates of this and that with oils of this and that and flavors of this and that with juice from this to make it look bloody and salt. And there's I was looking at the fiber content of it, because fiber would reflect the amount of plant matter in it, and it didn't really have any.
Oh, wow.
How can that be? So I think plant-based is a little bit under fire from other entities trying to glom onto its new rise to fame and acclaim lately. Whole food plant-based is quite different than plant-based, and that's what. So we're trying to really be clear about what we're doing, because it's our angle comes from trying to. We're working initially with heart disease patients, and these heart disease patients ended up reversing their autoimmune disease, and these are autoimmune disease, and heart disease patients ended up reversing their high blood pressure, and then they have less incidence of all these lifestyle related diseases, common cancers, and I mean on and on. It's this odd panacea, this whole food plant-based diet. So we try to just be clear and stick to our parameters of what that is, which is actually, for us, it's no meat, no dairy, no added oil, minimal salt, minimal sweet. And I say minimal because some people they claim this SOS thing, which I've never said that, but they mean no sugar, oil, or salt. And I use tamari, which is salty, and I use maple syrup, which is sweet. It tastes sugary, but because elementally or down to the elements of it, what it is, it's C6, H12O6. It is a sugar, but it's not a refined sugar. It's refined maple tree sap, immune system, lymph, whatever I call it.
From the Ayurvedic perspective, part of what we talk about with diet is that you want diet to be prasad, or you want it to be kind of sacred food. Food can be sacred. And the closer it is to the sun, not the more sacred it is, but we want all of our food to have as much kind of prana or energy as possible. And so when it's closer to the sun, it has more energy like that. The sun comes right to the plant. The plants have chloroplasts that capture energy, the sun's energy, and turn it into food. And then so it's only kind of 2 steps away for us to eat plants. But when it's animals, it's actually going through the plants that then are eaten by the animals and then processed into the tissue. So it's actually further along.
I had never heard it described that way.
Yeah.
That's so it's processed through other things as well as
through their bodies.
Just created by the sun.
Yeah. And then the other component is with processed foods. That's an interesting point you make about like these plant-based burgers that are mostly isolates as opposed to actual plants.
Yeah.
Because I do work with a lot of patients who do gluten-free. And so then they start doing gluten-free muffins, gluten-free cookies, and everything is just filled with sugar and oil to make up for the lack of gluten, the lack of texture, and the lack of fiber.
And egg whites and egg this and that. It's like all the gluten-free stuff is like
filled with.
If gluten was a big villain, like all people lived on for a millennia was beer and bread.
Yeah, that's true.
Beer and bread is what people lived on forever. Yes, some people, what is it, like 1 or 2% of the population has celiac, but not everybody. And I do believe in sensitivities. Like some people have sensitivities to bananas and lentils or whatever. We have that stuff, and wheat can be one of those, just because it's so, I think, we have overexposure to it. From like a bagel at breakfast to a sandwich at lunch and then pizza or pasta for dinner. It's like eating, imagine if that was a green apple and you had it every morning and every lunch and every dinner. You'd get like green apple sores in your body. Like, stop giving me green apple.
So variety is a big emphasis.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and variety, not just for exposure, but also variety is great because you want to get as you know, there's probably a great Ayurvedic rule around it or a guideline, but the more colors you're getting, the more phytochemicals and minerals and just all the good healthy stuff when you eat the whole rainbow.
Just to pop back to gluten for a second, I think some of the concern about gluten and wheat is how we process it in the United States. We shoot it full of weird chemicals and we do some kind of crazy processing. It's one of those things that's, again, kind of further from the sun.
Oh, yeah.
I have a number of patients who tolerate gluten in Italy or France and don't tolerate it in the U.S. So some of that is maybe related to policy stuff in the US about how we process food.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple times. And I also know when you're on vacation, everything tastes better. So,
So true.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to discount. It's very real. Like, I know I have some sensitivities to things and they're very real. I mean, yeah, I'm not eating Wonder Bread or anything. I'm eating like Ezekiel.
Uh-huh.
I was eating Dave's Killer Bread for a while, but they just started adding oil to it, which has made me stop eating it. I like certain rye breads, but I don't eat a lot of bread lately. So it's funny. Like, I'm not really one to speak to that, but I know people do have sensitivities, and I have heard that about other nations and how they make or they prepare and they process their wheat better.
And so, what are the kinds of foods that you eat? Like, what are some of the breakfasts you love? I
don't love breakfast.
Oh, there's that.
I like dinner for breakfast. I often like to have like a savory breakfast. And I think people know what I'm talking about when I say that. Some people like to have, a traditional like American breakfast would be eggs and bacon and, savory, cheesy grits or something. I would never eat that. That's not me, but I'm saying that's their palate is not seeking, hey, it's breakfast. Happy birthday. Here's a muffin. Like it's having a piece of cake in the morning, Just the sweet thing with like sugar chunks and you're, I never want to do that. I'm not hungry when I first wake up. Like I think that there's probably, you could probably tell me Ayurvedically, there's something, Pitta Kapha, blah, 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 I don't know what it is, but it takes my belly a little while to get hungry. I usually don't feel hungry until mid-morning, like 10:30ish. And then it's just this, that classic, like feeling and sound of hunger. And so since it's mid-morning, I occasionally will have just a piece of fruit because I don't want to trash what I want to have for lunch or something. But if I'm home alone and I don't care about my schedule of eating that day, I'll warm up some rice and beans. Last night we had a cubed up sweet potato, parsnips, and potatoes and onion in a pan, just baked. And I'll have some of that, and I might put some salsa on it if I feel it that way, or if I feel like I want to have it be breakfasty, I might put some ketchup on it. So I really just try listening to my body. And for a long time, I was having breakfast like everybody else around me and how most of the world did. But I was like, I don't want that. I like dinner for breakfast, and I prefer it. And I like to have it late in the morning, and maybe just even a piece of fruit. How about
great. I go back and forth. I think I feel like I'm still working it out.
All right. Oh yeah, I remember you. You didn't like vegetables.
No, I never ate vegetables.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh my God.
I stopped when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I ate no vegetables. I thought I had variety because I ate cheese sandwiches, macaroni and cheese, grilled cheese, bagels and cream cheese, and cereal. I thought I have 5 different things I eat.
I'm so happy you made it to adult.
When I went out to Evergreen State College when I was 19 years old, and I thought I was going to study environmental education, the only program that was open was an ecological agriculture program. And on Fridays, all of our classes were at the farmhouse. We did bugs, we did soil chemistry, we did politics of farming, history of farming around the world. It was potluck. They would say things like, Jillian, I brought you this salad that was picked with nasturtiums, and I made it with wild crafted greens. And I just felt like I couldn't not eat it, but I had no idea what I was eating.
Nasturtiums for eating flowers and
I would put these things in my mouth and be like, well, it's not terrible. And there was so much love around it. There was so much love and sweetness. It really expanded my understanding of what was edible in the world. Like there was a lot of things you could eat.
How lucky you got that exposure.
Yeah, it was a wild transition.
Hooray for Evergreen.
Yes, hooray for Evergreen. So what kind of lunches and dinners do you like?
I think they're kind of the same thing. Like I will eat the same thing for dinner, and I think many people do that. Pack a lunch for the next day from leftover dinner. So, gosh, if my husband and I are home alone, it's so simple. And even having one kid home, we sort of step up the game a little bit. And that's something that because my work is around cooking and recipes and food, where I'm oftentimes doing little experiments with my family. But I won't talk about that stuff. The go-to meals that our family loves, that we love, that we like to have, that are easy enough that we can do, or easy enough that I'm familiar with them. Like someone might say to me, oh, Jane, I just do my quick and easy, chicken divan. And I'm like, what is chicken divan? And did you put on a biohazard suit to hold the chicken? Like I wouldn't know how to begin. So they're like, oh my God, how do you do what you do? Well, I feel the same way about them with their chicken divan. So one of my favorite dishes would be I've already mentioned it, is rice and beans. Like we really eat that. I mean, we could easily live in, I don't know, Latin America or wherever they eat rice and beans like this. I have a 50-pound bag of rice and we just scoop it out and cook it up, and always have rice in the fridge that's cooked. And I mean, it rarely goes bad because we eat it in so much. And we've got, black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, all kinds of beans all the time, dried beans. Sometimes Brian cooks beans. This is a podcast, but look at this great pot. It's one of these like little pots that, you can see someone a million years ago cooking their beans out of that.
God, that's amazing.
It's a bean pot from Red Porto. And I'm not sponsored, by the way. Didn't mean to say it like that. So rice and beans. And if it doesn't always rice and beans, it's quinoa, or we'll have farro occasionally. Love this teriyaki tofu dish I make. The kids love it. And so I make it a lot. And it's become easy. Like you just make the teriyaki from our cookbook. Actually, it's right there, the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease cookbook. No, the Engine 2 cookbook, pardon me. And whenever I cook it, I don't overcook like too hot or too long. I overcook, like I overprepare. Like I make enough for 12 servings, even if there's only going to be 8 of us. So we'll have leftovers. It's always, every dinner, every night, we always have broccoli. It's one of our weird things. We always have steamed broccoli. Sometimes I boil it to death. And other greens, some other salads, we always have oranges or pears or whatever fruit is out. I'm very conscious of have my kids have a little vitamin C with each meal just to help mobilize the iron. They're all athletes. So rice and beans, teriyaki tofu. I have called a lightning bowl, which is this great, it's rice noodles with just a ton of just really chiffonade chopped kale and this sauce that's like lightning. It's just the lime and jalapeno and rice vinegar and tamari and maple syrup. It's just like shazam!
Wow, sounds so good.
Lightning bolt. And, we love polenta with all kinds of stuff on it. We do a lot of Buddha bowls, sweet potatoes and rice or quinoa and steamed greens. And just the secret we have found is having sauces and salsas and some sort of, for lunch, some spreads that you like. And we have a great variety that we love, from a romesco type sauce, with, sweet red peppers, to ginger peanut sauces, to curry sauces and hummus. And the hummus, there's like a million different I call them my humai because there's so many hummuses these days. So we have our humai. Plural, being plural of hummus, that is.
Yes.
And we caramelized onion hummus and beet hummus and curried hummus and Thai peanutty hummus and sriracha hummus and there's so many different humai. And
these are all like chickpea mixes that then you add spices to? Ground up chickpeas?
Or I'll just take our hummus and I'll add some flavor to that just to make it better. But some of these sauces you make from scratch, and some of them you can buy, get components of it, or just salsa, like a jar of salsa, your favorite salsa. It makes all the difference in the world, being able to flavor these, what people would say, like these basic components of a whole food plant-based. Like these bowls have, there's so many pictures on Instagram of people making beautiful bowls. I think ours are beautiful because they're really what we eat. They're not crafted or curated. It's just a ton of sweet potato, a ton of this, a ton of that, rat-tat-tat. We've got potato bar, and we just, a huge, big pile of potatoes and whatever else we can put on that. Anything. Sometimes kids are like, I want to put some ketchup on it tonight. And I'm like, you go. It'll be a healthy French fry. And we had some Indian type flavored food. I'm not excellent at making the Indian flavors work with no oil, but I keep trying. And a chickpea masala-ish thing over the cubed things we had last night. I'm trying to think what food we had recently. And chili. Brian makes my husband Brian makes an amazing chili with beans and lentils. And
that's a great winter food. Looking at the snow outside your windows, that's a great winter food.
Yes. And soups, and we make biscuits and have them with soups, and just kind of what everyone else eats in some ways, but just no cheese and no meat. Or not a lot of grease.
And it's great because what you're talking about, when you think about it, I think that there's so much talk especially in the functional medicine world, about what you should or shouldn't eat and about how grains are bad. There's a whole kind of like grains are bad, but really our neurologist, Dr. Eileen Ruhoy here, talks repeatedly. I can't remember how many times I've heard her say glucose is the brain's favorite food. So
only thing it eats. Yeah.
Yeah. So you really need that.
P6H1206 is what.
Great. Yeah. Glucose.
That's glucose is. And it's the only thing your brain eats. And if you're only eating paleo, like meat and grease, you're giving your brain the most screwed up version of that. Your body has to like glom it together itself. And it only does that when it has to. And it's like a sort of emergency, whatever. You want to just get your body what it needs. And you're going to be so clear-eyed and clear-headed, giving your brain glucose.
Feeding your brain glucose. So, and the meals that you're talking about then, so then the other thing, I think, obstacle or challenge that a lot of folks run into is really getting enough protein if you're not going to have meat and cheese. I know, you just gave me a crazy look.
Yeah, a crazy look, because I mean this in all honesty, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, but have you ever, in your clinical experience, ever run across any human with a protein deficiency?
No, there may be one, but very screwy. I see a lot of advanced gastroparesis, and yes. Okay.
So,
not for a regular person walking around.
Right. But how many people have you heard of who have like constipation or who have, oh God, what's it called? Outpouching of the intestines. It's called
diverticulosis.
Diverticulosis. It's one of the most common things. And it's just, that is, you ate yourself into ballooning out portions of your intestine because you pushed too hard because you didn't eat enough fiber. Disease and illness. We've got, protein deficiency doesn't exist. It is maddening how this has become an obsession, because there's no doctor that's saying to anybody, increase your protein for whatever, and clinically be able to back it up. It is a burden on your kidneys, and you know that too much protein trashes the kidneys, overwhelms them, overburdens them. And what people are really, their diet is seeking is fiber. Fiber makes you supple, makes your bowels supple, makes your vessels more supple, and thus your mind and your skin more supple. It's interesting to hear this about protein, because that's the first question we get, and it's the easiest answer, because we're like, there's no such thing as a protein deficiency unless you are a child. Like, you've seen these children who have distended bellies, like kwashiorkor. That means like mom had a baby and not feeding the other baby and not feeding me. Like, so literally a child starving, and when you're starving, you're not getting enough of anything, including protein. And our body, and you know this from taking all your biochemistry and stuff, our body would never leave the task of finding enough protein to our diet. Our bodies recycle and reuse and remake so much protein all the flipping time. And just like the way that our body from a paleo diet can make glucose as it's needed for the brain. So we do a lot of recycling of it, and it just there's not a deficiency out there that I've come across. And I've had 3 kids being plant-based, and I have 3 kids who are collegiate athletes, and they all eat plant-based, and some of them have NCAA records in their with their swimming. And if anything, it's a leg up. They're not inflamed. They recover quickly. They are unburdened by extra weight.
And you were just telling me about your son's height. So certainly this is not an impediment to growth.
I'm 5'10". My husband's 6'2", maybe. But our kid is 6'7". Hello, where did that come from? Vegetarians have historically been reported to be taller. But this is like, we were like, when's this going to stop? Like in high school, I thought at one point maybe he has a tumor, but he has no stretch marks or anything. So I know his body knew he was going to get that big. And our daughter's 6 feet. That kind of makes sense. It's but then we have one regular size kid.
Yeah.
We have the variety pack. They're 14. Our youngest 2 are 14 months apart and 14 inches apart.
Oh, that's great. And then the Engine 2 diet, RIP, is Like, I think that's part of what he talks about as an athlete and a firefighter, that he's making it all work on a plant-based diet, whole foods diet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Engine 2 is my older brother, Rip. People think that I'm his mom because I have white hair. And I'm like,
really?
My older brother. Yeah. It's because I don't dye my hair. And I will never dye my hair. But anyway, Engine 2, Rip did his first book, The Engine 2 Diet, was about his just being whole food plant-based with his firehouse and getting his brothers there at the firehouse healthy, and just encouraging people to give it a go. And it's good. It's in very accessible, like firefighter-ish language. And then he went on to have 3 more books, Plant Strong, The 7-Day Rescue, and The Engine 2 Cookbook. And for all those books, I did the recipes, and it was so much fun.
Oh, it's so great. What a fun time.
Yeah. And on how I got into that. You brought up Engine 2. Yeah.
I did. Because we were just talking about how healthy and strong and capable a body can be on a whole foods plant-based diet.
Yeah. And Engine 2 it's a book, obviously, but also Engine 2, Rip has made an immersion out of this Engine 2. And so we have these immersive times, like the whole Engine 2 team, we go to, we've gone to a variety of places, but most recently we're in Sedona, Arizona, and Black Mountain, North Carolina. And then we're going to go to Silver Bay, New York, on Lake George. But in these places, we take over the kitchen, and people come. There's usually roughly like 100 people at an immersion. And for the week, or 5 days to 7 days, we have them, I'm saying air quotes here, in jail with us, because they're eating our food, and we're doing a lot of sitting down on our bums and listening to lectures and stuff in the morning. But then in the afternoon, it's very active when we're doing all this activity. Actually, we exercise in the morning before we sit, then have breakfast and all this lecture activity and then outdoor activity. And people are thriving. And we're all the whole team, we're all plant-based and have been for decades. And, we're all healthy and thriving. And people are just amazed at how good they feel, even after 3 days. People are getting off their high blood pressure meds that they have been on for 15 years, 8 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
And they never thought they'd be off of them. And they're having their insulin or getting off their diabetes meds. And on day 3 is this weird magical day. We always joke like, "Ooh, okay, you guys, here we go. Body's on the ground today. What's going to happen?" Because people get, from being on any of those meds, as you will know, they suddenly get really hypoglycemic because their body's able to take in all their glucose, and they're taking all these meds to push it down, and they're like, suddenly there's a whoa.
Oh God.
and if they're taking all this blood pressure med, they don't need to, because their vessels are getting more supple and responsive, and it's just we're scared they're going to pass out, chip or tooth.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Can't have that happening at an immersion.
No.
Gotta keep them there.
So how do people kind of wrap up that experience? What do they take? Have you had feedback kind of like, 4, 6, 12 months later?
That is such a great question. Of course, you, the neurologist, are going to ask it because it's so wrapped into human behavior.
Yeah.
And what do we take home? And part of what my husband, Brian, has brought to this whole team and the whole conversation is that, okay, what are the hurdles? What are the challenges? Mm-hmm. The hardest thing is not being here and doing this, afternoon hike with us, or this eating your first nasturtium or whatever you're eating. Kidding, we don't eat nasturtiums. Maybe people are eating kale for the first time. The biggest challenge is when you get dropped off at the airport. That's going to be the hardest thing. And then when you get off the airplane at your and home. And then when you turn right out of the airport and you're going by all that fast food. And when you are in your home and there you are with all the food you used to eat and with all the friends you used to eat it with and the family you used to eat it with and the church you used to go to or the temple you used to go to or the soccer game you used to, whatever, all these patterns. So people who are able to take it on for some reason, they had to go through a couple of weeks of just being clear, strong. And then it's like coming out of the clouds. They're fine. They do great. Yes. But some people who can't get up out of that rough, it's just, I don't know the addictive nature of our minds, or I'm not addictive, but our habitual tendencies that don't let us break out of it, like get through that temptation. because it's a remarkable quick thing, just like putting that, I don't know what it would be, grilled cheese in your mouth, or that bite of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could give you a number of examples of things that I've eaten that I think, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I mean, but food has like got this, it's semi-orgasmic for people. They're like, I just need it. And like that moment of swallowing it and it's gone. Like it's from your lips to like the back of your throat. Well, that seems to dictate our minds and then our bodies and our behaviors and our health. And so if you can hang in there long enough, you can get through it.
I mean, what you're talking about really is the path of practice. Eating one plant-based meal is not a body going to make. What can you?
I knew you were going with that. Yeah.
And there are going to be kind of ups and downs and things, that meals that don't go well or meals that don't taste good. And part of it seems like you really kind of have to keep hanging in there.
It's such a process. It's a process like anything else. I mean, like any like sort of therapeutic process is getting this really healing practice into your kitchen and your fork and your plate and your mouth.
If you're enjoying this show, please be sure to share it with your friends and rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to check out our other shows as well. We talk about everything. You can get all the details of our clinic and the services we offer through our website, centerforhealingneurology.com. And remember to check out Jane Esselstyn's website at Jane Esselstyn, ESSELSTYN.com for all of her upcoming work, including Well Now Camp. Also, let me take this opportunity to tell you about the Seattle Cider Company, which sponsors our Party Fish Media production company. Not your standard cider, Seattle Cider Company bridges the gap between wine and beer with flavorful, small batch cider, bringing true craft cider back to Seattle and across the country. Seattle Cider Company's year-round and seasonal offerings break the mold of overly sweet cider, showcasing the incomparable flavor of Washington apples. Naturally gluten-free and made from a custom blend of fresh-pressed, locally grown apples, Seattle Cider Company's products are handcrafted with all natural ingredients and never from concentrate. Seattle cider products are currently available throughout Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Idaho, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nevada, Missouri, Massachusetts, Colorado, North Carolina, South Carolina, Montana, and Pennsylvania. Visit our tasting room locally, The Woods, at 4660 Ohio Avenue South in Seattle. And for more information, visit seattlecidercompany.com or follow Seattle Cider Company on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Seattle Cider Co.
Were you raised plant-based?
No, we always ate really healthy. Like we always ate fibrous things, like, cereals were always like just grape nuts and shredded wheat. And, we had skim milk. We never had eggs. Our peanut butter was the natural peanut butter, that it separates naturally, and never like that peanut butter frosting. Like, how Jif and Skippy, that's just like hydrogenated oil, sugar, and some peanut flavoring. I mean, it's just, so we always had like healthier food. And I became a vegetarian when I was 15 of my own doing. And
How come?
Because I was training I was a big swimmer growing up, and I was training in California in Mission Viejo for the summer with the national champion swim team. I was living with a family because they would house us with families. I was staying with this family who, they were lovely people, but they just got generic meat. I know it sounds gross, but the generic label at the store, like some market brand or whatever, it's like the hamburger meat that I was just used to growing up at home. It was like, red with little flecks of white in it. And this was so white that it was like almost an orange sherbet colored orange. Wow. So it was just so fatty, and they would cook it. And I was like, I was grossed out about it. Even as a 15-year-old with like a greasy burger, that would be appealing, but I'm like, this is really gross. So I stopped eating meat out there, and I'd never even heard of beans. I'd never even heard of legumes. So like, oh, you're not eating meat? Well, then you need to have like a bean burrito. So thank God I was in California. So they were giving me bean burritos, and like, have you tried hummus? I'm like, no, what's hummus? Like I hadn't even heard of it. So I came home from California after training all summer and stuff. And I was, yes, I was tan. Yes, I was, swimming in like a champ, but I was also vegetarian. And my parents were like, what? And they just sort of like, whatever. And meanwhile, concurrently, nothing to do with my tendencies, my dad was starting to look at his practice, which he's a general surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic for a million years. And he was like, I'm doing nothing for the next unsuspecting victim. I really want to help people not coming here with breast cancer and all this just stuff. I'm a carpenter. I'm taking it out and I'm sewing them back up, taking it out, sewing them back up. So he started to look into sort of epidemiologically what was going on and saw that there's many cultures without any of these diseases. So it wasn't the air, it wasn't the water. It was what their most intimate contact with their environment was. And it was food. So he really had this hunch that became his research, and that was to put his breast cancer patients on a whole food plant-based diet. And he pulled the data out of clinic and did some research. They started to have such amazing results in their cardiac numbers. Cancer was a little bit longer, harder boat to ferry to turn around, but the cardiac numbers were like almost immediate, and it was amazing. They were just plummeted into beautiful range, and that's how he then got onto this heart disease stuff. That was a long answer. So no, I did not grow up whole food plant-based, but we became that pretty much when I was around. I was 15, but my family was all on board by the time I was like 18, 19.
So when you talk to people about kind of making this transition, eating a whole foods plant-based diet, and when you have your immersion groups, how do you help people make that transition? Like, what do you tell people about their kitchens and about where they get their food and what kind of food? And, it's one thing to eat a plate that's just kind of been put in front of you. How do you walk people through that process?
Well, you know what? I guess you brought up a point that is really interesting that I didn't even realize we had this education point wrapped in, is that every meal is a build your own. And because we don't, this is not like, welcome, here's your plate, madame, monsieur. Hey, get in line for the food bar because you're going to get a plate. We'll have like engine 2. We'll make our own burgers, So the burger, for example, and people have a burger and they're welcome to have like maybe a underneath bun, but we encourage them not to have 2 buns because we want them to fill up with other foods as well. And this is a time to experiment. You're literally at this place in jail with us with a ton of food and you can eat as much as you want. And so they have like a burger and then they put on lettuce and tomato and onion and maybe some relish and maybe some hummus and maybe some. So they're just like building this wild food and they have a big salad next to it. And then we'll have a side of wedge fries, just potato wedges that we've cooked dry, no oil, obviously. And what do you want to put on all those? So they're having a ton of food, but they're figuring out what to do themselves. And everything is pretty easy to do. Like I can add lettuce, I can add tomato, I can add onion, I can get a potato and cook it like that. Okay, I can do this and this. Oh, what's the burger recipe? There's usually like only 1 or maybe 2, a sauce recipe that you're trying to figure out because it goes on top of something. Or like the burger would be like, I'm having a burger night, but people would make their own burgers, hopefully, to begin with anyway. A lot of our things are like build your own. Freekeh is the new grain out there. Here's freekeh and quinoa. And you're going to put this bean or that bean on top, and then you're going to put these salad bar things on top, and then you're going to come around. We'll have a little soup, and they'll have some soup with that, and then we have a whole toppings area that has sriracha and nutritional yeast and different spices and different flavored vinegars and mustards, and just top it how you want. So we're training them. This is how you can eat, and it's easy, and you can shop at any flipping store out there. You can. And if, because an organic is preferred, obviously, but if you can't afford it, don't go eating, marshmallows because you can't afford an organic apple. Like get an apple that's not organic if that's what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So that makes it actually really accessible.
Yeah.
Like what are some of your favorite kitchen appliances? Like what are the things that you use a lot of?
Oh, I drive my rice cooker like a bat out of hell. That thing that works overtime. I mean, I'll put rice in the morning before I go out and come back at night. And if the rice is done, I'm ready to go. Just like throw some beans in the sink under hot water and throw in some salsa or whatever you have in the fridge, and you've got rice and beans. I use that a lot. I even do it overnight. Sometimes I'll put some steel cut oats in there. So in the morning, we've got kids who are swimming at 5 a.m, or we're getting up a little after that. So we all get some steel cut oats. So the rice cooker is great. It has all these different settings, and one is called porridge. And I'm like, okay, I'll put on the porridge for the morning. Night. And so a rice cooker for sure. And I love and use my Cuisinart like mad. And I say Cuisinart because it's really what it is. It's a food processor, and it's got the flat bottom, big steel blade. Some people have a Vitamix that works well. the depth of the Vitamix is not what I need. I'm not making juicy, no, not juicies. What are they called?
Smoothies?
No, your mouth is what your body really needs you to process the food. If you have teeth and you can use them, eat your food. Smoothies, it ends up being just a dump of, I know it's food that's been pre-chewed, and your tongue has got such an important role in creating like nitric oxide, which is what makes your vessels have the suppleness to release nitric oxide. And all these little nooks and crannies have the nitrates in there, and they become the nit. My dad, I always forget the role of it. My dad has said it a million times to me. Mm-hmm. Yes, you eat your food and the nitrates and the bacteria.
Facultative anaerobes.
And your tongue creates the nitrate, and your stomach becomes nitrate, and then nitric oxide. Anyway, whatever it is, nitric oxide has attached to your tongue in some way. And and so chewing is great. Also, the alpha amylase in your saliva is what breaks down carbohydrates, and we need that. And it is sort of a glucose dump sometimes. Of you're like, oh, I only put one apple in, but still, one apple and one swallow, just to shoot up eat your food, chew it. It's how it's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I like my Cuisinart. Well, I'm getting a side carried away there. And I love parchment paper.
What do you use that for? Or how do you use parchment paper?
Every day, all day. It's I line my pans with it because you don't use grease on our pans, and it makes things brown, and you don't have to clean it afterwards. And I use it to light our wood stove. It's great. And then I have these little rubber spatulas called, it's a Tovolo, Tovolo. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I were all the time. But it's a rubber spatula with two different end options. And one is like, can really get into like the squared off corners. And one of them is just a good spreader. So you can like get everywhere. It's like fingers. It's so good. What else do I love? Oh, a really good chef knife. A really good chef knife is key. When you have a good knife, you want to chop and you want to cook, and then really good food. Yeah. I mean, good ingredients.
That's great.
Powerful ingredients.
Do you have any recommendations for people who have families that where one adult kind of member or one teenager wants to eat cheeseburgers every night, and people are trying to kind of start including more whole foods, plant-based eating?
I have to say that our kids have always been vegetarian, vegan, plant-based. Growing up, they had to make their way, and so they go to the occasional birthday party and have cheese pizza and cake, and come home like, oh, what was that? And it's, fine. You got to make your way. You got to figure it out. I mean, they never had meat, and they never really had milk, but they would bump into dairy here and there, and just really greasy stuff sometimes. And now they steer clear of it, but they were exposed to what we ate and prepared all the time. And a lot of how I prepared the food when they were growing up was kind of like, if you will, I'm not promoting Chipotle or Subway, but in this way that those kind of fast casual stores, like, you can choose what you want as you go down. Like, for example, we would make nori rolls, nori sushi rolls, the rice and nori sheets with rice. Yeah,
so the seaweed, and you would roll up kind of stuffed inside like carrots or rice or tofu or
I'm apologizing for not knowing the correct name for it, but so we would do a roll your own night, and I would put out the sushi sheets, nori sheets, and we put it on brown rice, and we'd have red peppers, mangoes, scallions, cucumbers, all these things that we'd have. And then with tamari and pickled ginger and wasabi. And my husband and I would make these big filled things, all these vegetables, and our youngest daughter's like, oh, that's what we're doing, and she would do that. Our son would be like, he would just put on rice, and he'd go and he'd find some sea salt, put it on there. And we're like, all right, I don't know where he got that. And he rolled it up, and then we had our one daughter would just get a bowl and put rice in it. So that's how our nori went. It was like from everything to nothing, but that's how it would go. And now everybody loves really yummy vegetable packed nori. And I actually discovered that my son, a girl in his class, rolled nori for everybody in class one day. Like for her birthday, she wanted to have a nori rolling thing, which I think is really amazing and progressive for Cleveland, Ohio. And this is like in 3rd grade. And she brought, so everyone had their own little salt, little things at their place. So that's how he learned about the salt from his friend, whose birthday it was. And he brought it home, this salt. So I was like, all right. It's amazing how kids will learn and mimic what they kind of think is cool. And, me, she made it that way. So I'm sort of thankful. Anyway, so we would do just the variety like that. We would, in some ways it was like being kosher. Like at home, it was always whole grains. It was always beans. It was nothing was greasy, cheesy, meaty. But when they went out, they had to make their way. And nowadays, with kids with their gluten issues and their dairy issues and vegetarian issues, there's always sort of a way to make it happen. But I will say that I grew up when I was in my teens in eating a standard American diet-ish and then not doing so. So I know that it can be hard, and I know there's a resistance, and I know that I wanted to change. So if you have a teenager or somebody who doesn't want to change, I wouldn't try to push hard. I'd say and Meatless Mondays in your mind, just make some pasta with red sauce. It is not always known that that's a vegan meal. Like it is. And we're having spaghetti tonight. I was late. Any meatballs? No, I didn't thaw any meat. Like, just fine. They can put whatever they want on top of that, but they're having mostly plants that night. And, chili is a great meal, and you can make it without meat, or you can have a little meat on the side that you've cooked also, and your kid can put some meat in their chili. But just meeting them halfway sometimes, and without pushing your agenda works for some people. Or they know it, they're starting to feel better because they're eating better. But some people just never want to change, and they have to want to make the change in order for it to happen. And if you present too much information, like you're going to die if you eat a bite of cheese, that's not true. If you make too many, maybe you'll compromise your health and your immune system and give you pimples and whatever. It really depends on family to family. Some kids are just wired to be like, my mom and dad need to get healthier, so we're eating really healthy at home, and they're on board. Like, that's wired. Some kids are like, I'm giving you double finger up in the fingers. I'm not gonna eat that. That's a load of yuckiness, and they'll want to go out to get a burger every night, and they can just be like, all right, fine, but you're gonna have to start paying for yourself because we're buying healthy food for our home. You gotta get a job so you can eat your junk food or whatever the family structure can handle. And every household's a little different in how you support your kids.
It's an amazing idea to kind of picture so many different options so that people can really participate in their meals. So your nori roll bar was an amazing way to think about. Part of the problem is that when you're a kid, if you're just handed a plate of food, then when you grow up and you go off wherever you go, when you leave your home, you don't have a good sense about how to put food together. Or if you're just buying junk food or you're getting takeout and you're picking takeout, it's still just kind of being delivered to you. So if you have options with different condiments where you're building your bowl or you're building your plate, then you check in with your body before I think that process is really important, where you check in with your body. How hungry am I? How much do I want to eat? Which things do I want to eat? What am I craving?
That's right. And it put you in it without saying it, you're educating your family, you're educating yourself, your spouse, your partner, your guests, and how to build their own food. Like, you are in the driver's seat, and you're going to make decisions about your own health that are going to help you make good choices. And all the choices here on the table are pretty healthy. If it's build your own nori, if it's build your own potato bar, build your own Buddha bowl, build your own burrito bar. I mean, everything has options, because you can always have a tiny bowl of cheese with your 3 guests. They have to share that little cheese. And, you can have a little bit of something like, hey, we're having a build your own burrito bar. Can you guys bring the ground beef? We're mostly vegans, but could you bring it if you guys want some? Oh, so they feel like they're bringing in like this, toxic, dead thing. And
my 5-year-old did look at me this week and was like, wait, you have to kill the cow to get the burger? And I was like, yeah, that is how it works. And he was like, really? It was like this moment of kind of realization about what happened to make the food.
That convinces some kids. And I would say like right now, if you did it last week, this is a good week to be like, do you want to try to make a burger that's made from beans and oats? I'll give you the page in my book. I'll give it
Perfect.
SOB burger or the handstand burger.
Okay, got it. SOB. Or what's the other one?
Handstand.
Handstand. Perfect. When we think about steps for kind of eating closer to the sun, when we think about steps for kind of like there's the steps of our body, moving our tongue around. Like Ayurveda talks about, digestion starts with thinking about the food. And that's why it's so important to actually smell the food before you eat it. As part of the cooking, is because it actually starts triggering the neurological system of the body for kind of what you're going to be digesting. It creates hunger. It creates all those hormonal signals that food is coming. It prepares the body. So the body from the mouth all the way down starts to get prepared to release digestive juices in order to intake this food. And then the mouth is this other process. And even sitting down at a table where you're having multiple things on your plate, and then you're deciding how much do you want to eat, of what kinds, how many toppings, how many spices. Those spices also really are for the digestive components. And then you're doing the process of intaking and digesting. So, when I first contacted you about this, I wanted to talk about like food, love, and community.
All wrapped in together. We've been talking about it.
So this community, the idea that we're sitting together for dinner, that we're not necessarily on our phones, that we're not watching television, that we're not doing anything but kind of listening to what our bodies are telling us, and then listening to what other people are talking about in the day to digest your food well. Does that play a big role in kind of how you eat?
Oh, yeah. The mornings, no, because we don't eat as a family in the morning. The kids are up and out at 5, and they're, my daughter every night makes this overnight oats, like just oats and berries and oat milk or walnuts and stuff in a jar. I think it's kind of gross. Loves it. And I'm like, ooh, that's not my brand. Again, it's the sweet breakfast thing. So oats are so mushy. But she does it. And I guess a lot of other girls on the swim team are now also bringing their overnight oats. And I don't know if it's the trend that someone else was also doing and they saw Bainan doing it or how it got picked up. I don't care. I just love that they're doing this healthy start. Oats are such nice anti-inflammatory food.
Yeah.
And lunch-wise, my husband and I will just sort of catch what we can in between working at home. We both fortunately work at home, but dinner is a big time when we all together as a family. And if it's just the two of us, or if we have all the kids home, or however, or my parents are next door, they'll come over. And it definitely is. Our family is all about food, and we commune as much as possible, and we do so because of love. And sometimes it's a tough thing, but you're going to get through it. It's usually something crazy that's going on, and it's kind of fun and a moment to be together.
Food traditionally is a time to be together.
Oh, yeah.
And we were just talking about, before this started, about how intimacy is where we do our deepest work. So this is both the intimacy of the relationships with each other, with our family and our community, but also the intimacy of, as you said when we first started, our food is really our most intimate contact with the external material world. It's just literally kind of smeared along the inside of our digestive tract.
Yeah, of our environment. It's like the environment becomes us. We become the environment. Like our ecology is us. Like c'est moi.
Yes, c'est moi. It's me. Yes.
Absolutely. It's all so related. And I love the Ayurvedic concept of the eating closer to the sun. I had never heard that before, which I think is so beautiful. I think paleo is, I want to say a nice thing first. So paleo's done the nice stuff as far as getting people off of processed foods, out of the drugstore or whatever, chips, candy bars, and just cheese whiz and dairy. That's been great. And that's the huge things to not eat. And they have some root vegetables, which I think are awesome to eat. But the amount of like bacon and beef and stuff, it's just, our paleo ancestors were not eating that stuff. They were not. They were not catching big beasts every day and feeding the whole tribe. They were eating high fiber foods. They had when you find those, I don't know the proper name, but like the guys frozen in the glaciers, like the Iceman. They look in their stomach and they look in their gut and they look in the pouch of food they're carrying. Like they're eating like what we mow down every afternoon in the summer. Like they're eating grass and roots and bulbs, and just they have more fiber in their stomach than we eat in like a week.
Yeah.
Even vegans. They're eating stuff that they probably couldn't break down. And they were probably eating like, you see a dog eating grass, you're like, dude, what are you doing? That's not like, it's going to go right through you. I'm sure we were doing like a lot of that as humans, just eating stuff to keep the hunger at bay and hoping that we could get whatever we could out of whatever we could break down. But our microbiome in our gut is just made to, it feasts on that the fiber you can't break down. I just knowing that we have always eaten that much stuff. And if you could catch a hare, if you could catch a deer, we're like, wow, you probably had to eat the whole thing then and there that day. Rot or whatever. Maybe you had techniques to smoke and salt things back then. I'm thankful for paleo for that reason. And I got off track. Eating plants gives everyone a chance in a healthy life.
What's next on your docket? Where are you headed next?
Oh, thank you for asking. I have a couple things coming up that are really exciting. Every March here in Cleveland, I host a conference for women. This year it's called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease and Cancer for Women at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute, March 7th. We have some wonderful presenters. Colin Campbell from Cornell. He wrote the China study, and he's sort of the Albert Einstein of nutrition. Dr. Christy Funk is coming. Breast, the owner's manual.
Nice.
And she's an amazing surgeon and researcher out of, I don't want to say it wrong, but LA. And she was Angelina Jolie's surgeon, Sheryl Crow's surgeon, actually. And she's been on the Doctors and Dr. Oz and Today Show recently. And I think because it was Breast Cancer Month in November. And my dad's presenting. My mom and I are doing a demo. My sister-in-law, who's an OBGYN, is presenting about how it's a really sort of a traditional branch of medicine, being an OB-GYN stuff. Over the years, she has had more and more change of her mind. She's like, every single thing people come in to talk about, all I want to talk about is plants. I want to get pregnant. They want to lose weight. They want to, their hair, their skin, their breast health, their uterine health, their ovarian health, their, they have a cancer diagnosis. They have a high blood pressure diagnosis. They have whatever it is, fibroid, get off dairy, UTIs, stop chicken, like all these things. She's just all about plants. Talk about the hurdles and the challenges of going through a whole food plant-based diet with Brian Hart as well. So that's coming up March 7th. And what I'm really excited about is Well Now. Well Now. It's a camp. And it's June 4th to 7th at Kenyon College campus in Gambier, Ohio, near Columbus. It's for plant-based women warriors or anybody who wants to try to eat plant-based for a couple days. We don't sit on our bums having lecture time. We have camp. It's full of activities. We've got arts and crafts, improv, dance, creative writing, talent show, evening entertainment, cooking presentations, and it's camp. Hikes, swimming, parties.
Oh, so great.
It's camp.
It's camp.
It's just camp. And it was a blast last year. We are so excited to do it again. And the women who came were fantastic.
Oh, so great.
And we always do workshops like wrapping your head, heart, and hands around plant-based eating. We do those like every April and July and October, November-ish. There's just a lot, and my last kid's going to college, so I've got lots going on. But oh my gosh, and the Esselstyn Foundation, which is a public charity that our family has around trying to get the message of a whole food plant-based diet out of the bubble, out of just the bubble of people who've heard about it and know about it and think they can afford it. We want to really get it out to influencers and people who interface with families or populations or churches or schools or something where a whole food plant-based diet could be helpful. We've done it with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health recently.
Ooh.
That's what I'm talking about because you grew up in Cuyahoga County.
I did.
And we have all these community health educators who are going to go out and be able to talk about and present this as an option in parts of Cleveland that would not always get this message. So in the next few months, we're presenting in Pittsburgh and Tennessee and Gadsden, Alabama, which is the third unhealthiest city in the country.
Oh.
And, a couple other places. So the Esselstyn Foundation is really exciting because we want to be able to get the message to people who can't always if it's a hurdle around getting the information for financial reasons, we want to just eliminate that.
Yeah.
And people have been so beautifully supportive. It's been exciting.
Oh, great. What wonderful work.
Well, you got wonderful work there too. Gosh.
We were talking a little bit about it. Well, I've come a long way from having you as my high school health teacher, which really I tell you probably every 5 years how meeting you felt like now I had a way to grow up in the world. It's still true.
Thank you for saying that.
It's still true.
I didn't know which way I was growing then, but that's happy. That's nice. Makes me happy.
Yay, makes me happy too. So Jane, any last thoughts or any last things you want to get across to our audience today, to our listeners, about whole foods, plant-based eating?
I think that there's no harm in trying it. You're going to eat anyway. Give it a go. Give it a try. And if you're already doing it, carry on. Onward with plants. Onward with each other.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Jane Esselstyn, nurse, educator, researcher. We didn't even get into your middle school sex ed stuff.
Enough is enough. It's been so great to be here. Thank you.
So we've got lots of ways to continue this conversation through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find us at centerforhealingneurology.com, or you can come see us in our Seattle-based clinic. Be sure to share this show with your friends, and we welcome your ratings and review wherever you get your podcasts. And feel free to send topic requests to podcast@centerforhealingneurology.com. We love that you've all joined us today to discuss how to make your whole world, our whole world, medicinal. We rise or fall together, and we're committed to doing what we can to make as many of us as healthy as possible. And this takes all of us, including you. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Partyfish Media acknowledges that it operates and records on indigenous Duwamish and Puget Sound Coast Salish land that is still home to the Duwamish tribe. This land is stolen in violation of the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. We are committed to uplifting the name of these lands and community members from these nations who reside alongside us. For more information on this land, its people, or ways you can help, visit duwamishtribe.org or realrentduwamish.org.